Today we're going to install the Carver Surf Rack Max, and this carries boards up to 10 feet long. So these are all the components of your Carver Surf Rack Max. It's a bag of hardware, back rack, and carrying yokes, and this is everything that comes in the package. So here's the contents of the hardware package, and inside we have pretty much everything we need to mount the rack onto the bike. The one thing that we don't have that we need in the package is an 8mm wrench for these nuts here. All these other Allen wrenches will be used for these Allen screws to install the rack. So we're going to use the two of the bigger Allen head screws to mount the rack to the rear frame stays. So make sure these fall on the outside of the frame when you drop the rack onto the bicycle. And then using the two of the larger Allen head screws, you're going to want to mount the rack to the rear dropouts. This doesn't need to be super tight yet, just snug. Then we can align the rack where you should to keep it parallel with the ground. And next we're going to fasten these using these mounting brackets onto the rear stays. So now this mounting bracket's going to go on the rear stay, and depending on the diameter of the tube, you may or may not need to use these rubber spacers. In this particular case, we're going to have to use one of the rubber spacers. You want to spread this bracket out a little bit so you don't scratch the paint on the bike. And then you want there to be a bit of space so that the bracket doesn't close all the way, so it'll give space for one, the mounting stay, and two, room to tighten so that the bracket fits snugly onto the rear stay. So to fasten this mounting bracket to the rack, we're going to want to use one of the smaller Allen screws with a washer on it, and then the 8mm nut and another washer. So first, put the Allen screw through, the washer, and then the nut. Just get that finger tight. And then you'll have to use the 8mm wrench to tighten the rest of the way. But right now we just keep it loose enough so that it's on there, and then we'll snug everything up once we have the rack in the position that we want it. And we're going to repeat this step on the other side over here. So now for the other side, same process. Still need that rubber spacer so that we have room for the support as well as extra space to tighten the screw. Washer on first. You're going to want the Allen head on the outside. Push that through, and then put the washer on. And then the nut. And then just finger tighten. So now we're going to want to position our rack so that it's parallel with the ground, so this sits flat. So this looks about right. So then we're going to snug everything up down here. These tighten along these support stays right here. Excuse me. And then this is the lateral adjustment here. That's a 4mm Allen wrench, and this is a 5. So with these snugged up good and tight, so that the board does not crash into the ground. Then we're ready to snug everything else up. So using the 8mm wrench and the 4mm Allen wrench, I'm going to tighten up the supports on the rear stays. Just do that on both sides. And then we're going to want to tighten the ones on the rear dropouts. Using a 5mm Allen wrench. Now we're ready to install the yoke to carry the surfboard. So with the capped end of the yoke, we're going to stick the capped end into each of these holes. Make sure these 5mm Allen screws are good and loose. They usually come pretty loose. And then we're just going to slide that in. Now if it's tight, you might want to take a flathead screwdriver or something and just ever so gently pry this apart so that it slides in easier. And then we are going to want to snug up these 5mm Allen screws using the Allen wrench that came with the package, or in this case I'm going to use a special Allen wrench to speed things up a little bit. And then we're going to do this again on the front. So again with the capped end, and with the cap we're going to stick that in and then snug up the 5mm Allen screws. So then we're going to install the bottom yoke that actually carries the surfboard. And there's a spring-loaded pin here. Just notice the orientations of the holes and the top piece of the yoke. And just push that pin in a little bit so that it clears to the inside of the tube. And then there's a couple different settings for this pin. When you're carrying a surfboard, it's going to be here. Then to change this position, you just push the pin in and twist it. So just take note of the orientation of the pin and the holes. Push the pin in. Slide it into the upper piece of the yoke. And then once the pin's out, it's locked into position. You're ready to go. And don't forget to check out our website at chubbyscruisers.com.